Hi there, it's Jen from modernmedicinelady.com and the Empathic Woman System, and the word of the day is bravado. So I've been sort of having this conversation about defensiveness and the ability to admit when we're wrong. And I was thinking a lot about how bravado is one of the things that we often use when we are not feeling confident about ourselves or about our truth, when maybe we don't have the evidence to back something up, but also when we care about something a lot. And so we go in with a certain amount of boldness and bravado, like, yeah, you want to try to knock me down? Try to knock me down. And I was having a conversation with a dear friend of mine about an experience that they had had, and I'm going to change the details a little bit to protect the not so innocent. But essentially, they were in a situation where they were having a conversation about something that they really loved, and they were talking about something believing that they knew what they were talking about. And it turned out that the people who they were talking to knew a bit more about this thing than they did, and basically said, I think you're not talking about the right thing here. I think you might actually have your facts a little screwed up. And the thing was that they had their own stories about being teased and ridiculed and bullied, and particularly having like older siblings who were constantly challenging them to stick up for themselves and to stand up for what they believed. And so instead of being like, oh, wow, I had no idea. That's so interesting. From my perspective, I thought it was this way. And I guess I hear your perspective is different. And isn't that amazing? What a wonderful world we live in that I can still learn more things. Thank you so much for revealing this new whole chapter of possibility for me. But instead of doing that, because partially the person who was calling them out was kind of being a dick about it, what happened was that they basically doubled down, and they basically got more invested and more planted firmly in what they believed, and their bravado just went up even higher. Now, I think we're living in a culture right now where especially certain politicians who shall remain nameless are really good at this bravado thing and really good at doubling down, especially when somebody challenges them and says, hey, I think maybe what you're saying is completely full of it. And instead of being like, wow, oh my God, maybe I am, they're just basically like upping the ante and like putting more money and more money and more money down on the argument or the claim. And I think the thing about this is that a lot of times in this culture, we are taught that bravado is our way of getting through something, that it is better to be right about the wrong thing, and it is better to have a certain boldness and cockiness and confidence than it is to be able to go, oh, oops. And especially when it comes to things like running our own business, especially when it comes to anything where we are invested in looking good, it can be really hard to say, I don't know everything. This is something that I am only just discovering. Wow, you just gave me a whole new way of looking at it. That can be a very, very powerful thing. And I actually think that it builds our credibility. But we live in a culture that often says that if you admit to not knowing something, that somehow that's going to weaken your stance, that it is going to make you potentially vulnerable. And in some cases, there are people who are even afraid of litigation if they admit that they didn't know absolutely everything about absolutely everything. And as a result, I think we have a culture that encourages bravado, that encourages people sort of like picking hills to die on, even if they have nothing to back it up. Now, what I love about my friend is their incredible capacity to own it, as well as their capacity to just laugh at the whole situation, because in hindsight, it's actually really kind of funny about just how willing they were to die on this hill, even though the further they went down that road, the more they realized that they didn't have a leg to stand on. Except that in some way they did. What they didn't have a leg to stand on was the facts. But what they did have a leg to stand on was their own feelings and their own truth. And if they had basically said, you know, I hear that factually you're right and I have things to learn, or that you have more information than I do and I'm taking that into consideration. But the truth is that in my heart of hearts, this is how I feel about this. And while you may feel differently about it, this is simply my emotion. This is simply my feeling. And that's not going to change, at least for today. Maybe someday it will, but for right now, this is how I feel. And in my experience, it's much harder for somebody to challenge an emotion than it is for somebody to challenge a, quote, fact. And a lot of times we don't necessarily need to have bravado when it comes to sharing our feeling. Where we end up getting into the bravado stuff more often than not is when we're sharing something that is not provable or is sometimes maybe unfounded, or especially when somebody's challenging us. But when it comes to emotion and also our own personal experience, we can share that and just basically say, this is my truth. This is my reality. This is my experience. Yours may be different, and that's okay. There's room enough for both of us. So my question to you is, do you ever find yourself like getting all up in it and having a certain amount of bravado about something? And have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're like, I am talking out of my butt and I don't know what I'm saying, but I am so far in it, I can't back down now. I hope they don't notice that I am completely full of it. Never happened to me. No, never. And have you ever had that moment when you realize that you've got a choice, that you can either keep on going down that road of basically total bullshit, or you can get real, you can get authentic, and you can acknowledge what's really going on and actually have a real connection with somebody? So I'd love to hear what you have to say about all this. Please leave a comment below. And until next word of the day, I'm wishing you peace, I am wishing you ease, and I am wishing you the ability to laugh at yourself and to recognize when bravado is serving you and when it is getting in your way. So, in the meantime, please like my Facebook page, Modern Medicine Lady, and since you probably already like it, since you're watching this video, please invite your friends to like it. And also, I will be eternally grateful for your help to get this video out into the world. Please like it, please share it, and please pass it along to other people who find it useful. Thank you so much, and until tomorrow, peace.